Here's Myles comparing private clinics to hospitals.
Right now, the private clinics, there's a range that I'm aware of. It's between, I think the cheapest is $6,500 for a hip surgery. I think the highest is somewhere close to 10, 11,000, something like that, under current contracts, which we're going to change. The best that we can ascertain based on doing the cost allocations and things like that is that the typical cost for a surgery, the same surgery in a public hospital, is closer to $30,000. And a typical operating room in a private facility can do 2 to 4 times more surgeries per day than a public hospital can. Now, why? Good question.
So I'm going to stop it right there because this is probably the most misleading part of the conversation. You were just told that a private hip replacement costs between $6,500 and about $11,000, while the same surgery in a hospital costs $30,000. Sounds shocking, right? Like, oh my God, that's proof. Why are we spending so much money? But it isn't. This is a non-equivalent cost comparison. And there's a reason that he couldn't just pull a single source number, because the cost is not a single source cost. Okay? Public hospitals don't just perform scheduled hip surgeries. They run emergency departments, they staff ICUs, they train surgeons and nurses and anesthesiologists. They handle complications, infections, cancellations, and the sickest people. Private surgical clinics don't do any of that. When you compare the narrow cost of a single hand-picked procedure in a private clinic to the full system cost of a public hospital, you're not measuring efficiency. You're stripping out responsibility. Okay? And notice something else. Again, there was no source given. There was no audited cost breakdown and no independent verification. He just pulled out some random number that he wasn't even sure on. So now let's talk about the second claim buried in this clip. Okay, the piece that private surgical clinics can do 2 to 4 times more surgeries per day. Okay, this is where intuition kicks in, and people think, well, of course, because they're faster. But faster doesn't mean better, and it definitely doesn't mean fair. Okay? Private clinics increase throughput by selecting the healthiest patients, avoiding complex cases, canceling nothing they can to reschedule, and transferring complications back to the hospital. Public hospitals don't get that option. They have to take whoever comes through the door, regardless of the risk. Okay? They teach, they stabilize emergencies, they absorb failures. Okay? That's why they look slower. It's not because they're inefficient, but it's because they're doing absolutely everything. Okay? This kind of comparison, it's not new. It's a classic privatization tactic. Take a focused, low-risk service and compare it to a full-blown public system and then call the difference waste. Okay? But the public system isn't wasteful. It's comprehensive. Okay? And when we pretend that those two things are the same, we don't get cheaper or better healthcare. We get a system where the easy cases are skimmed off the top for profit and the hard cases are left behind and the public system is blamed for collapsing under the weight. It's not efficiency, it's cost shifting, and it's still letting the people with more money skip the line. Okay? If you do not want to have to pay to get a timely surgery, sign your recall petition. Say no to all of this.